First of all, of course, want to thank Mayor Ed Lee for opening his doors to welcome us today as we introduce a piece of legislation which will allow all of us who are fighting the good fight to sustain not only the accreditation of Community College San Francisco, but to restore its enrollment and to stabilize its funding. All three pieces go together. So I'll be introducing a number of speakers in a few moments. Additionally to our speakers, we're very pleased to have the Superintendent of San Francisco Unified School District, Richard Carranza, is with us. We have the Community College's Deputy Chancellor, Eric Skinner, who is representing Chancellor Bryce Harris. We have Community College of San Francisco Trustee Steve No and Community College of San Francisco Trustee Anita Greer, as well as Jenny Lam from Chinese for Affirmative Action, and I believe Elisa Messer may be with us as well from the local AFT. So again, we all know that there have been great challenges to our very beloved community college here in San Francisco as a result of the question of its accreditation. City College, I don't need to recount, of course, is a portal, sometimes the only portal, for an opportunity for higher education, a college degree, a certificate for workforce training. It's also one of San Francisco's largest employers. It's also a great customer to so many of San Francisco's small businesses. We must sustain our San Francisco Community College. And the news is good. Chancellor Bryce Harris, of course, who is himself a former commissioner, is well aware of what needs to be accomplished to save this, I think in our opinion, most important campus and district of the entire 112, if I can be so bold to say districts in the entire state. So he has every incentive to make sure this job gets done, and I'm confident, and I've told everyone I know, that it will get done. So our challenge has been that in spite of the good news and the progress that we're making, that there are some who would otherwise enroll at community college in San Francisco who are not. And so we have to make sure that changes. We've lost about 16% of enrollment in the past year. That's not going to be sustainable. So the message is one of positive expectation. Accreditation will be sustained. The message is that everyone who wants to enroll should enroll, and that once you're enrolled, you're safe. We're going to see you through the entire process. No one's going to get dropped once they're in the system, and we have to stabilize funding, and that's the point of this bill, because without the stabilization of funding, what happens is what's known as a vicious cycle, a downward spiral. Students don't enroll, fewer dollars from the state because of the low enrollment. As a result, programs have to be closed down, faculty may have to be let off, and it gets smaller and smaller until we may not have our district any longer. So that's why we have to stabilize the funding. So what the bill does, very simply, is makes a relatively minor amendment to state law. Currently, there is a single year of funding stabilization in California statute. So, for example, in the 13-14 school year, the funding level is the same as 12-13, though enrollment is down a bit. So we're going to call 13-14 the base year of funding for Community College San Francisco. Going into 14-15, we'll stick with that base funding. Going into 15-16, the funding will be no less than 95% of the base year. The next year out, no less than 90% of the base year. And the last year out, 17-18, no less than 85% of base year funding. Now I say no less than because of course it's our hope by the time we get to some of the outer years, enrollment will be on the rise, and hopefully this will not be necessary. But it is a floor, it's a safety net, it's a baseline so that we can continue to work to restore enrollment, to rebuild the school, and again, all through the process of sustaining accreditation. Now, what will trigger the use of this funding allowance is that there will be a significant risk to accreditation. So we know that that criterion is already met by Community College of San Francisco. In the bill, you will see a second criterion, and that is stated that a special trustee has been appointed by the Chancellor. I want to clarify that the intent was not to engage the conversation of the special trustee. The reason it's there is as an accountability standard. I'll be amending those words with regard to special trustee out of the bill, and through the committee and legislative process, working with all the stakeholders, from our sponsor, Chancellor Bryce Harris, to all of the stakeholders, the faculty, the students, the staff, the administrators, all of those who are involved in sustaining the accreditation and the well-being of the college, to come up with a very real and acknowledged accountability standard, because of course we know that the Department of Finance and the administration, governor, will want to see accountability in the bill to be able to support this. So that is a work in progress. That will be something we'll be focusing on as we go through the committee process, but I just want to make that clarity. So with all of that said, those who have been fighting the good fight and doing everything possible to make sure this jewel in the crown of San Francisco stays in place, I'd like to again thank him for his hospitality and for his leadership, and also for his friendship, and that's Mayor Ed Lee.
Time and time again, Senator Leno has really come to the aid of the city. You know, if the last couple of years, his stewardship on the state's budget has been so welcoming to have that contact there and understand what the state is doing. His latest feat that I want to continue credit him for, about the vehicle license fee that's just so hard fought.
Let's raise taxes.
Yeah. And now we've asked him to take on yet again, and he's been gracious with his time and leadership in taking on. You know, it's not about the City College being popular. Everybody knows it's popular. It's absolutely necessary for us to have our City College. Necessary for job, skill creation, necessary for business, necessary for the educational goals of all of our residents. You'll not find very few people in this city who haven't been touched by our City College over generations, that this institution helped them succeed. And so the backdrop of this, with our education leaders, our trustees, our special trustee here, representing Bryce Harris as well, the State Chancellor's Office, as well as our own education leaders like Richard Carranza and others, and the teachers, the certified union that represents them, along with the individual elected trustees. We're here together to say that we're taking care of business. And this relationship that we're building here is not going to end because of the challenge to accreditation. We're actually wanting to set a relationship with the city and all of its education leaders and all of its financial leaders on a course that will continue to support City College forever, because that's what it deserves. And so with Senator Leno's leadership on this stabilization, it is one huge pillar in an ongoing discussion about how do we make sure that the financial challenges that have been identified as part of the accreditation is taken care of. And we believe it is. And we don't want a self-fulfilling challenge to then say, because of low enrollment, then we've got another financial challenge. We're taking care of business the way it should be, the way people that we have lent to our City College, whether it's the Controller's Office or my own budget director, and the valuable time that they're giving to support Chancellor Tyler and the special trustee to make sure that everything is financially accountable. It is my more than hope. I'm essentially telling you, with Senator Leno's leadership here and with all of the leadership we have here, we're not going to fail. We're not going to allow City College to fail. We're not going to allow an accreditation challenge to turn into something that we can't manage here in the city. And in fact, I think that we have done now and evidenced this very solidly. All the things that we've done to date, particularly in the last year, evidence a strong foundation for City College to be off this financial cliff. And we will continue saying that strongly, unitedly in this city, because we have a body to convince, and I believe that that convincing is even more strong with the stabilization effort that we're holding on here. We're going to do a lot more here, but we're beginning relationships that I think the City College would appreciate. And it's something that we did with our school board some years ago. And now you look at how they've transformed and changed with us. We're not letting go City College to an accreditation challenge by a body of people that we believe now see the evidence is very clear in front of them. We have a very, very good, solid City College, and we want to keep it and grow it and improve it. So again, this is a way of my saying thank you to everybody here surrounding me for all your wonderful effort. We're going to continue working hard to do this. There'll be more announcements that I think are positive about what we're doing so that we are off on this financial cliff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to step out of the way now and just introduce the following speakers. We'll next hear from our special trustee, Robert Grella, and we're going to hear from our chancellor of Community College San Francisco, Arthur Tyler, followed by our Community College San Francisco Board of Trustee member, Raphael Mandelman, and then followed by Fred Teddy, who is the president of the Academic Senate. Trustee Grella.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Mayor. Clearly, this bill is an extremely important bill for CCSF. As has been said, and we have made tremendous progress toward our accreditation. We continue to make that progress. We continue to work hard. But clearly, without the stabilization funding, we do face a financial cliff. And so this is another investment in City College. It's really gratifying to see the kind of support that has come from both Senator Leno and Mayor Lee. As the Mayor has said, he's lent us support in all kinds of ways. Now we're getting support in terms of the stabilization, which will really set us on a road to certainly not only maintain accreditation immediately, but for generations to come. So I thank both of them. I thank Senator Leno in particular for sponsoring this bill. Thank you.
Well, it truly is a pleasure to be able to stand here and tell you that City College is still open, we're still accredited, and it's my goal to sustain that for generations to come. With the help that we're being given by the city, I want to thank the mayor, first and foremost. He's been a wonderful partner, and perhaps I'd like to call him my new best friend. He was actually the second person who called me when I took this job, and he's starting to teach me a little bit more every day about really how wonderful this city is. I want to thank next, obviously, the sponsors of this bill, Senator Leno and the State Chancellor, Bryce Harris. Dr. Harris has also been a wonderful friend over many, many years. But more importantly, he's a visionary when it comes to community colleges and what they do for the state of California. I'm very, very proud to lead perhaps the most wonderful group of faculty, staff, and more importantly, students who come to City College to find not only their dreams, but have their hopes transformed into realities that they perhaps in some cases never thought about. That's why this institution is not too big to fail, it's too important to fail. You've heard that from many, many speakers already, and I can only tell you that everyone there is as committed as I am. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to make wonderful transformations over the last 100 days or so that we've made. This funding will help us continue that. It will help us avoid that sort of death spiral that happens when you start to lose enrollment because of external measures or pressures. It will help us continue to sustain the things that City College has been known for almost 80 years. I want to thank everyone here again for being supportive.
First, I want to thank Mayor Lee again for convening us here and for your commitment to City College and keeping it open, accredited, excellent, and integral to the life of San Francisco's diverse communities. It's no secret that the last several years have been rough ones for City College. And the perverse and really terrible irony is that the people who've been hardest hit are the people who are least blameworthy in all of this. The students, the would-be students who've deferred their educational dreams, the faculty and staff who continue to deliver a great education every day under the most difficult circumstances, facing substantial pay cuts and dramatic uncertainty about the future. And I want to thank many of those faculty for having been here, including Elise Messer from AFT 2121. But there has been good news, and you've heard some of it this morning. One of the things that has been incredibly heartwarming to me has been the support the city has shown, including last year the voters passing Proposition A, and by more than the 2/3 required, to ensure that City College continues for another 75 years. And it's been profoundly reassuring to see San Francisco's elected officials stepping up, from the mayor and his team, Hydra Mendoza over there, hello Hydra, who've provided extraordinary support on the ground to help not only deal with accreditation but also solve long-standing problems at City College, to the fine work of our city attorney, to the strong expressions of support from Congresswoman Pelosi and the members of our congressional delegation. All of that has, I think, made me feel great, and everyone who loves City College feel good. But today, Senator Leno takes an extraordinarily important step and makes an extraordinarily important contribution. Everyone agrees City College must stay open. But with your bill, Senator Leno, City College will have a chance not just to survive, but to thrive, and to begin to emerge from the darkness and uncertainty of the last several years. So I'm here to extend my great and abundant thanks to Senator Leno for being willing to take on this critical and challenging mission. Nothing related to City College is easy these days. Tensions are high and tempers are short, and trust is in very short supply. But Senator Leno is a good and respectful listener and a very effective legislator. And I have total confidence in his
President of the City College Academic Senate. Many thanks to everyone here for their hard work and their remarks. This legislation is important not only for the continued stability of City College, but also for the morale of everyone connected to the college, its entire community. Because of the college's capacity as one of the primary workforce training providers, it will benefit the city as well as the entire region. We educate the proletariat, and we think that's dynamite. Thank you.
To the Accreditation Commission's action threatening the university as far as being able to get federal funding, what does it say about the privatization or the accreditation agency that you have to pass a special bill to protect City College? First of all, does that raise the question of the role of the accreditation agency and how it's conducting its business? And secondly, there is a privatization drive in community colleges and state colleges, and the recent action by the appointed trustee to pay administrators higher money outside their agreement, does that question the role of the special trustee and how he's operating City College? Is it for the public interest, or is it some kind of other interest that it's being driven?
I sincerely thank you for your comprehensive question, because I thought I'd have to take each of the 3 or 4 parts from about 4 different people. So you put it all into one, and I thank you for that, because there are many issues, real, very serious issues, that we will be addressing collectively and individually with regard to Community College San Francisco. The bill specifically and singularly focuses on funding stabilization. So the question with regard to the commission, Leader Pelosi has had her comments very publicly repeated, other congressional members as well. The city attorney is addressing the authority. So all of these questions will be addressed one way or the other. The bill has an urgency clause in it, and that's because we want this to take effect immediately for the 14-15 year. We can't wait till next January for it to take effect and not have the urgency clause. An urgency clause requires a 2/3 majority vote of both houses of the legislature. So to the degree that we can recognize that there are these other very important and serious issues concerning Community College San Francisco, but not to have those issues cloud the direction and the purpose of this bill is what I will be focusing on, because we need to get a 2/3 vote threshold. So I will be with you in that conversation with regard to the commission itself and with regard to the salaries. All of those must be addressed, and they will. This bill is about funding stabilization.
How do you attempt to get like buy-in from other lawmakers who have no connection to City College and who, you know, dealing with their own community college issues? Like, why should they care about what's happening here?
You put your finger on my job, my task.
So how do you attempt to
So the way I will present this to my colleagues is that we have a 112 district system, and that we're all in this together, to the degree that any one, not to mention potentially the largest and most important piece of it, is struggling right now. Any risk to a particular district and campus is a risk to the entire system. And that should another part of the system find itself, for whatever reasons, as a result of the commission or some other action taken or internal challenges, the other parts of the system will be there to protect and sustain you. So this can happen to anybody, anywhere. And I think it makes sense. We're taking nothing away from anybody else. No other campus or district will in any way be impacted negatively by this. So it's, again, recognizing that the system is only as strong as its parts.
Can you clarify the part that you said you were going to amend the criteria that the special trustee be in place? Is that going to come out, or is it just, is you're going to add to that? Can you clarify the amendment issue?
There's a line of copy, I can give you the chapter and verse if you like, that makes, it's the only place in the bill where there's reference to special trustee. It will be amended out.
Amended out.
In its place, amended in, will be after a conference of stakeholders to come up with a accountability standard that will be significant enough to reflect well in the eyes of the administration and the Department of Finance.
That the special trustee may indeed be leaving soon. There's been some controversy over his decision to continue City College's relationship with Wells Fargo, as well as a few other decisions. What was the concern around that part?
So given that my name is on the front of the bill as its author, I have to take full responsibility for the fact that special trustee is in the bill right now. But the reason that I believe and my sponsor believes that it should not be in the bill is because it attracts all the kinds of questions that you're suggesting be asked. This is not about the special trustee. The special trustee was placed there by Chancellor Harris, and I believe will be there as long as the Chancellor believes Mr. Grillo needs to be in that position. I'm not here to comment on that with regard to the funding stabilization. It was there for the purpose of identifying an accountability standard. We will replace it with one that will not attract unnecessary debate and attention, because this is about funding stabilization.
How much has the college lost, both in students?
This spring, we're about 16% down from where we were last spring. And when you look at that in terms of dollars and cents, it probably would mean somewhere in the neighborhood of $23 to $26 million in less funding than perhaps we have today because of the current stabilization. And if you continue that into the next years out, then as you can quickly grasp, that would be an extraordinary amount of income that would be taken off the table and would undermine the wonderful work that's already been done to help the institution regain, perhaps in my terms, its iconic status and compliance with the standards. The downward spiral of funding is something that we can't afford if we're going to continue the good work that's been done by the faculty and staff to sustain ourselves. And so, as you might imagine, if we had to cut 16 and then perhaps the next year another 16%, that'd be 32% of the programs that we currently offer, which would not support or serve the communities of San Francisco. I mean, we're in a wonderful boom in terms of economics, and City College needs to be there to support the growth of the workforce and the skill sets that are required and need to be sustained by the people of San Francisco. That's really the hallmark of why this bill is important.
That's what you would lose if this bill doesn't pass. The 23 to 26 million is what you would lose. But so far, there has not been a loss because
That's correct.
Okay.
This year's a current year of stabilization right now. And what we're hoping to do is continue that as we finish all of the monumental work that's been done. It's going to take at least another year, and more importantly, it's going to take time for the students to have the confidence to come back to school. You know, what we've noticed is that our students haven't gone anywhere. They're not going to other colleges. They're just sitting on the sidelines, waiting to see what happens to us. And so that's an important thing to note, and this stabilization funding will help us give that confidence back to the students. Thank you.
How many students, I know it's 16%, but do you have a number of how many students dropped?
I don't have a specific number, just a percentage on the top of my head right now, but I can get you that number.
CCSF will receive extra funding from Prop 30, California Prop 30, and Prop 8 in San Francisco. Will that balance out the loss?
No, that doesn't balance out the loss.
I just have another just kind of numbers question. What's the current budget of the city college? I mean, it's 23 million for what?
Currently, we have a budget of about $190 million
And
in
so
general funds.
as of this fall, you would expect to lose 20 to 23 million
In the upcoming year, if this bill does not pass, that's correct.
And then I just had another question, Mark, about the bill. There's some percentage reductions that kick in.
Yes.
You know, generally budgets go up, and so this is a baseline. I mean, would that actually mean less than might otherwise be expected? I mean, it might be 80% or 95%, but what the college might have expected to get was 3 or 4% more than whatever the baseline was.
So again, the wording in the bill is no less than 95% in the third year, second year 90% in the third year, 85% in the fourth year. So again, if we can turn around restoration of enrollment more quickly than that, we won't need to use it because it would be no less than 85% in the fourth year. But if we're restoring enrollment and it's above that, it will be what it would have been otherwise.
And aren't there a couple of other community, city colleges, community colleges in California that are in similar straits at the moment, or is City College the only?
Not at the moment. Of course, we do know a few years back there was a serious challenge to Compton, and a lot of their students spread out to surrounding colleges.
To what degree does the administration take some kind of responsibility for this cost? I mean, there's been class cancellations, and there's also been an effort to collect more money from students, which a lot of people say has had an impact on registration. So you kind of seem to be pulling in both directions. Can you answer that question, Tyler?
I will let the chancellor respond, but again, this is out of concern that this could become a vicious cycle where cuts have to be made because fewer students enroll, and then cuts have to be made to faculty and to programs, and it just keeps going down. The chancellor can speak to that.
Sure. In terms of the current requirement for students to pay their fees, that's always been the case. And that's been one of the challenges that this institution has had. We can't give a gift of public funds. And I've said this publicly, I wish community college tuition was free. Okay? I wish we didn't have any fees. But that's not the case. We can't sustain ourselves. At the current time, I think we had something like $4.5 million worth of receivables from students. That money should be coming from students to help fund additional programs and pay for additional classes. And we need to collect that money from the students. But there are also lots of dollars that go unused in both our scholarship fund as well as in our tuition reimbursements that can come through the state as well as through the federal side of the house.
Thank you, Chancellor. Thank you all very much for being here, for asking good questions. I got to get myself on the road.